Welcome to the tour of the Basque Country. Great skies, as you can see. It's a verdant land, so plenty of rain has fallen here. That's a Baroque-style chapel that we'll be passing today. I like Baroque, but prefer a rock bar. It's the 56th tour of the Basque Country. We've got a breakaway. Tenuous, I think, is the word. What about yesterday? Super effort, and great to see the breakaway actually making it home. Luis Leon Sanchez raising his arms ahead of Dani Navarro. Yes, we had again a four-man breakaway which started to thin down. In fact, it was a secondary break that was to prove to be a decisive one. It involved Luis Leon Sanchez from Astana and indeed Dani Navarro themselves. They did make it, as you've probably already guessed, having seen them cross the finish line. Few bumps and bruises. That was a pinch point by a bridge. And there's going to be plenty of those today. It's impossible to map out every single race that you take on, and team strategy can often depend on a little bit of local knowledge. I'm not sure how much Luis Leon Sanchez had, but he decided that it was well worth going for on the penultimate climb. There were others that thought about joining the fun as well. Robert Jessic, Wilco Kelderman had their own thoughts from LottoNL-Jumbo, but the descending skills of this pair were something to behold, and Luis Leon Sanchez, quicker than a motorbike, well, quicker than everybody else, that's for sure. Dani Navarro thought he'd come out into the wind quite late and make it, didn't quite get there. Sanchez took it, and as you saw, a fast finishing Simon Gerrans, really his only chance of taking a stage, one would have thought, losing out. Well, he said, I think the team worked well. Dario Cataldo did a great job at the end of the race. I had to try until the end. It was a beautiful battle with Navarro, and I had a chance to win, and it's something very good for me and indeed for my team. So he gets the massive hat. Good man. And the leader's jersey, of course. It's almost a thankless task to be out and on the road on a day like this. It's cold, it's grizzly, and some would say probably a little bit miserable as well. Well, we've got our breakaway here. There were four of them, incidentally. Madrazo from Caio Rural is still here, and so is Stefan de Neffel. Two riders who were a threat to the overall were in the break. This pairing not. De Neffel 8 minutes and 24 down. Madrazo 2 minutes and 5, and those gaps likely to be bridged. Leader on the road, I guess you might say, is Angel Madrazo, as they stand at the moment with a gap of 3 minutes and 55. But they had Louis Meintjes and Simon Petilli from Lampre Merida, both of whom were only 18 seconds adrift, thought, especially because the pace today is not at its highest. So as we get towards the end of the day, there is, well, quite frankly, a wall to deal with. It's a very nasty piece of terrain you through in a few moments' time. It's going to be a hard man's end to today, and one suspects that most of the management of the day has already been done with the winding in of Meintjes and Petilli. So it might be a bit of an amble, Magnus, but then when we get to that final wall, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I think you're right there with 2.7 kilometers at 11.5%, almost 12% average, and the steepest part of it is a kilometer at 13.5%. So it is quite literally, like you said, a brick wall. Going to be very tough finish to gauge, but I think we're likely to see the big guns come out and play today, and certainly the likes of Quintana and Rodriguez usually likes these very steep climbs as well. So yeah, quite a bit of a battle to have.
So let's check out what we're dealing with today. There are the peaks, and it's the Garrastatxu. Never had a finish there before in the history of the Tour of the Basque Country. Going back to the 1920s, we remind you. And it's a tough one. Well, there's lots of drama there, but then all of a sudden cut short, which is a bit of a shame. Nonetheless, 70.8 kilometres to go. We've been conjuring with today, to be honest, and those who are likely to be a feature. And indeed, it's going to be an explosive kind of rider that makes it to the end. Of Sky, probably not Mikel Landa, I wouldn't have thought, but you never know. Sergio Henao is more akin to going for it. Defending champion Joaquin Rodriguez for Katusha, he'll certainly be in the mix. Dan Martin likewise. He's got a little bit of question mark over him time trial wise, the individual time trial at the end of this race, so it might be that he's allowed a little bit more leg room, or at least space to go well. So we'll see. There are plenty of explosive riders, but the elite explosions, that's what we're calling on today, if I'm allowed to say that. Simon Yates, why not he? In fact, fifth here last year. A lot of people sort of forgot about that, and there's no shadow that he lives under because of the success of his brother Adam, but Simon really is the more capable of the pair. He's also fifth in the pan, we remind you, so yeah, he can go for it, but so again can a number of others. So don't be surprised if Rui Costa pops up. Miguel Angel Lopez likewise, or indeed the aforementioned Rodriguez himself. And why not Contador and Quintana, Magnus? They showed great intent yesterday, didn't they?
Well, I think they're going to definitely be there for this battle. 2.5 or 2.7 kilometers still a very long time to climb, and certainly when it's as steep as it is. So there's no doubt in my mind that we'll still have Quintana and certainly Contador battling on this one as well. We're likely to see a few of the other guys come out and play as well on a finish like this, because it's effectively one that could make maybe not the final decisive move for the general classification, but certainly a start to one.
You can see it's brightening. In fact, they're in sunshine at the moment, despite the raindrops on the lens. So it's kind of hard to know what clothing you actually want. He just handed over, Mikel Landa, a warmer vest, and he's gone for a much lighter shower cover at the moment. As you can see, great big lump of green plastic hovering around, as you can see, being revolved at the moment. That is a power meter of sorts. There are various different ones, some of you asking on Twitter. If you'd like to join the conversation, by the way, feel free to do so. It's at Maggie_PR, meaning Paris-Roubaix. Of course, that's looming large in our thoughts right now, this coming weekend. Or indeed at Carlton Kirby, CarltonKirby. There's Fabio Aru. I don't know, I haven't seen his... Well, I was going to say I haven't seen his little smile, but he's got a massive smile. It almost goes all the way around to his ears when he's happy. Doesn't seem so at the moment, though, does he, our Fab? He's less than Fab.
Well, he's not been firing on all cylinders so far, but then again...
You're not allowed to use cylinders.
No, true. That is true, or electrical motors for that matter. But he's certainly not been going all that well so far this year. But then again, he needs to kind of make a decision as to how he sets up his season and what his targets are. And with that, sometimes you can't actually go too well too early on.
Do you think he has trouble living with Nibali?
I don't think so, because they don't tend to do an awful lot of bike races together.
It's true, but yeah, occasionally crossover. But I don't know. There seems to be a bit of pecking order issue going on. They've had a go at each other in the press.
Yeah, I mean, is that the press having a go at trying to build something
Who
up,
knows?
like we've seen so many times in the past, or is that an actual issue within the team? Like I said, I guess it's only them two that really knows what's going on there. But most of the time, you can have two GC leaders, and as long as they're not all gunning for I want to ride a tour and try and win the tour, then you're going to be okay. There's 3 Grand Tours in the season, so pick one and I'll pick the other.
Spread the love.
Yeah.
We just saw Quintana a few moments ago. Now, former winner here, of course. He's come out very well, and in fact not only of course won here, but he is reasonably explosive as well, but he's lost a couple of real big helpers, not least Jon Izagirre, who failed to start this race due to a stomach bug. Gorka as well is out, so it's a short team for Quintana. How significant do you think that's going to be, especially on a day like this?
Well, it depends on if Quintana goes and grabs the leader's jersey on the stage like today, or whether he just waits a bit longer. There's certainly an awful lot of more climbing to be done, but today is certainly an opportunity to take it. If he does so, then he's going to have a bit of an issue, or at least there's a couple of his teammates are going to get an awful lot of work to be done.
There's a rider trying to come through here, boys. There's a bike filming a bike interviewing a car, and a rider trying to get through. Enough said. 67.7 kilometres remaining, 3 minutes and 36. Thanks for all of your kind thoughts. It was a belter of a day yesterday, wasn't it? Great stage.
Yeah, that was certainly the final 10 kilometres or so were really interesting indeed, and the fact that you know, there was what's going on here?
He's got some tape going on here.
Oh, it's bandage. He's been on the deck, and they're just pulling a bandage up to kind of hold the you know, it's almost like a netting that holds the compressing in place for when you're riding.
There we are. Trying to make him feel better while wrestling a piece of netting.
Well, it's also they're trying to protect the wound from the external sort of from the rain and the mud and all the diesel that's on the ground, and certainly if it is a bit damp and that keeps on sort of spraying up on a fresh wound, that it tends to get very easily infected.
There we are. So keeping themselves clean and ready for action. It's Astana out front at the moment. Can't see the leader's jersey. It is I think they have to call it a golden jersey. I don't think they're allowed to call it a yellow jersey for obvious reasons. Apparently that title has been bagged. But it has got a blue stripe across it as well. But nonetheless, the leader, although with a rain jacket on, up here towards the fore. Whether Luis Leon Sanchez will be in the leader's jersey at the end of the day, anybody's guess, but I guess probably not. We're going to take our first break in just a short while, and then we'll be back with you for the resumption of hostilities when they finally do go for it, and the terrain may beg it. We will talk you through it in a moment. It's grisly, gnarly, nasty. Enough about Magnus. This is a desperate day, isn't it? It's not a day you'd automatically reach for your bike.
Well, no, not necessarily, but when you're in a bike race, I actually tend to enjoy these kind of days a bit.
I know. That's what I was alluding to.
Yeah. You know, I don't know why, but it's I guess most of the guys are sort of gone home already, or you know, they want to be back in the hotel room, and that kind of meant that if you were mentally strong and were quite keen on getting out there, then yeah, you tend to do all right.
Yeah, function well. And Mark Cavendish actually likes days like this. It reminds him of course, his homeland, the Isle of Man, where he, of course, grew up and brought himself to the table. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, he finds the soft, sort of drizzly days rather pleasant. I imagine he spends a lot of time either at his homes, various homes, but a lovely one in Italy, of course. And yeah, the great man himself finds days like this comforting, I think is what he said in the past. But there we are. Especially, you know, if you're racing, Magnus, and you know others are suffering and you're not, you can welcome days like this.
Oh, most definitely so. But it's also, when you're racing, I certainly found I didn't really feel the elements quite as badly. It's one thing when you're sitting on the top of a 2,000 meter climb and the weather is like this, then it tends to get a bit cold. But if you're just racing on the sort of foothills or the flatlands and it's miserable and wet, then it tends to be. I certainly tend to enjoy it quite a bit. You just got to race harder and get yourself warm. There you go.
Stefan De Neffel, then get yourself a virus and knock you out for a year. Don't forget that. Stefan De Neffel, he's went very well in the Pyrenees a couple of years ago. He's only 28 still, the Austrian. I kind of feel he's been around for a bit longer than that. He's wearing he's got the bright yellow socks, overshoes and socks, as we're looking at right now. He's riding alongside Madrazo, Caio Rural always busy, especially in a race such as this, and Madrazo is 27, often runs reasonably well. In fact, he's had a couple of good runs. In Étoile Bessèges, he was runner-up in the points classification, and in fact took stage 7 of the Étoile into Laudun. And that was a kind of a rolling day, not as focused as the day we've got to deal with today, but nonetheless he's a bit of a breakaway boy, and he made it stick in the Étoile Bessèges this year. Stage 4 it was. And he's hoping, I think, for more glory today, but it's a massive ask, especially with the talent he's got chasing him down today, Magnus.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's also had a very good outing in the Tour of Britain in the past as well. So certainly a man who likes this kind of weather and this type of terrain, undulating, difficult, and just hard. Yeah,
there you go. So how would you describe today's map? We didn't see it. We only saw the altimetry. It weaves all over the place.
I'll leave the descriptions up to you.
Well, it does have a big loop over towards the west, a long sort of strand with a squiggly bit in the middle. I can only think of a tapeworm with indigestion.
Yeah, okay.
Back to the racing. I'm leaving that picture in your mind, sort of scrunched up in the middle, round head at one end and a long tail, which is what we started with today. 61.8 kilometres to go, and it's going to be a long day, isn't it?
It certainly is, Carlton.
Dear. 3 minutes and 21, which means we've got plenty of time to have a chat with your good selves out there today. Does Lars Jørgensen, I think I've pronounced your family name right, Lars, but he says, does Carlton Kirby really consider the poorly prepared Landa a Sky captain? Well, no, I said he's the principal rider. He wears the number 1. However, I did say that Sergio Henao is the man, exactly as you're saying. So yeah, Henao is the man, and runner-up, of course, here. Last year, and he was fresh from being under the surgeon's knife then, wasn't he, as well? I think what was it, his knee that was the problem? I think it was, and he came back, did a great job, and I expect him to do a great job here. So Lars, I'm actually in your camp, mate.
I think Sergio is definitely looking at this one with a view of doing a general classification ride. But I just wonder how badly prepared Mikel Landa is. I don't think Sky is a team that would let their riders come back into racing before they're actually going okay in training, and with that, I think it's a safer way of looking after your riders, because if you go back, if you've been sick or injured, and then all of a sudden you jump straight back into racing without any kind of preparation and training first, and actually a pretty decent form, you tend to sort of run on the rev limited the whole time through that stage race. You come out and then you get sick again. Believe me, I've tried. And nowadays, I think that the majority of the teams are smarter and actually making sure that the guys are well prepared by the time they get to a stage race. So, I wouldn't write him off completely.
There we are. I hope that sorts you out, Lars, but thanks for getting in touch anyway. Peter Gorgoy is watching as well. He's from down in the colonies, he says. I'm not allowed to call that, Peter, but you do yourself, so you're clearly happy. Still with the Union Jack as part of the flag. Don't know how long that's going to last. There's been a few votes, apparently, knocking around the place. Did I hear that New Zealand had taken a vote and decided to stay as they are? There you go. It was all one time part of a big family, but very much independent-minded nations these days, and why not indeed? We just passed the church of Santa Maria Cajuedo Palace. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, it's a Renaissance style dating back to the mid-16th century. That's before Wham were even formed.
It was.
Yeah, it was. And it's got a few paintings as well. It has appeared in, as I'm sure you at home have recognised, particularly the one by Juan de Aranoa stands out in my mind, certainly. It was the lightning strike, I think, that did it. 58.7 kilometres to go. Magnus looks slightly baffled. But yes,
I'm just trying to process all this information I'm getting from you, Carlton. It's
look, it's the Romanesque style.
The memory card is full.
There we are. The problem with me is I don't have a bin, a memory bin, and it can go quite burdensome. I have to live with this mind. 57.6 kilometres to go, and you're probably thinking that's far too many at this rate. But yes, keeping yourself dry as you possibly can be. And our leader, as you can see, I can't call it a golden jersey, wearing the leader's yellow and blue jersey. Here he is. Luis Leon Sanchez beautifully won yesterday. Gutsy push that brought dividends. Good to see.
Well, yeah, I think the move that he did on the descent there was brilliant, and then played it really cool in the final kilometre or so. So I really enjoyed that in that final, and it's not every day we get to see such a focused descent all the way into the finish line. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
Me too. Chance of a breakaway succeeding today pretty limited, especially with the climbs. Now, we promised everyone we'd go through them, Magnus. There are as well along the way today quite a few climbs that are not categorized that really will have a big impact, especially the penultimate climb, which we will take 3 times today, that very climb, and it's the Alto de Chozas, or Chojas, or Chozas, depending on whether you're Spanish, Basque, or indeed hardcore Basque. Apparently there's a difference. There's the old Basque and there's a new Basque. Have you ever tried Basque?
No.
No, you can get arrested for that. There we are. We are about to take the Alto de Chozas, I believe. Let's have a look. No, we've already done it. Oh, damn, missed it. It is reasonably significant, believe me, but the Alto de Mendeica is up next, and they'll be on that in about 9 kilometres time. So we're on a bit of a transition at the moment, and then it's when the road starts to zigzag all over the place. It really gets quite uncomfortable, and in fact we'll take the Alto de Chozas 3 times, the last time 8.2 k's from home. It is not categorized, however, but it is still a pretty focused climb. Nothing, however, like the near 12% average that we're going to deal with at the end of today. Welcome back. That's where we are, and indeed the red bit is where we're going, and the road does pick up. In fact, that's a bit unkind really, because I'm looking at it and that doesn't look nearly as focused as it actually is. The next climb is the Alto de Mendeica. Apparently there's a silent J between the K and the A. Look forward to that. That's not an Olympic pool, but it looks like a training facility nonetheless. A few tennis courts that could do with a lick of paint. Hey, it's been raining. They've had a tough time. The Alto de Mendeica beckons, and our breakaway duo. I think about now they could probably do with Louis Meintjes knocking around, to be honest, if he hadn't been such a threat overall, because the man from Lampre, formerly of Quebecer, which became Dimension Data, that sounded complicated. Yes, only 18 seconds down, along with his teammate Simone Petilli. That looks like a radio transmitter. I've got no notes on it, but it looks like it means business. And that, I guess, is more or less where we're heading. I'm hoping at some point we're going to pass by the Dalika Canyon and its waterfall, because that's worth a look, to say the least. The cascade, as Magnus has been telling me, falls over 120 metres, and it is a delight, particularly in the spring sunshine. You're getting poetic in your old age, mate.
I do try.
So 2 up the road. We're heading for this climb. You can see that they're more or less on it right now. It's a reasonably long one. It's only categorized in the latter part of it. And Magnus, it's got a nasty kick at the end of 10%. So these guys are certainly going to have to work hard.
Yeah, it's not the longest of climbs. It's only 1.5 kilometers long, but it, like you said, it's got the last 500 meters at least around about 10%, and the early parts of the climb is around about 5. So yeah, it's a tough climb, but nothing that should really hold these guys back too much. Bit of running mechanics there. Rimac that didn't quite operate the way he wanted it.
Dan Prins, I bet it's Prines, or is it Prince? He says, why are you so bad at pronouncing names? I suspect it's because he's got a mystery name himself. Dan, why don't you tell me how... Oh, look, there's your falls. Anyway, Dan, I'll do my best.
About 120 metres he falls.
Yeah, look, and you're absolutely right about the fascination of it being caught in the spring sunshine. So thanks for that. In fact, you were wrong with the 120 metres. It's 270 metres.
Yeah.
And there's a viewing platform up. That is not a bungee jumper about to go for it, is it? It looks like a bungee platform nonetheless. Yes. We were talking about New Zealand, where all that craziness started a few years ago. Anyway, thanks for the waterfall. It looks like God's fire hydrant has been let off, and it's time to get back to the racing. Not that we've got terribly much of it at the moment with 3.5 minutes, but the gap is closing.
Ever so slightly, yes. The two riders out front are still doing a good job, and they got this little climb to deal with, and then a bit of a nice descent before we sort of start the real, should we call it, testy bits of today, where it's very much up and down all the time, and obviously finishing off with his brute of a climb, 2.7 kilometers long, 11.6.
I'm just looking ahead of us here, Magnus, and it looks like we're going to have a rainy end to today. It was a 75% chance. Yesterday they said 66% chance of the entire day being rained upon, and 100% chance, they said, of it rain at some point. I think we got a couple of spits, but nothing really more than that.
No, we definitely didn't. It was an interesting weather forecast, that one, but I guess they kind of covered themselves properly so that any eventuality would be okay.
This looks like a crumbling mountain of shale, and obviously the waterfalls are doing their job. By the way, the water only falls as vapour because it's so long, the drop here, and it really is rather spectacular. I always think when you go on these stage races, you can actually see there the water, many millions of litres of it per day, just vaporised and then reforming down in that basin at the bottom. It really is rather beautiful. Yes, I think it's lovely. It's almost a gift to us all that you manage to see these great places, mark them on the map, and then why not go and visit them later on? Yes. Do you know that there have been attempts to walk across the lip of Niagara Falls? And there is actually a record for it.
That doesn't sound very sensible.
No, there is actually a record for it, but somebody will tell me what it is. And it's not been made public because they just don't want people to encourage people to do it. Why would you do that? They used to go over in barrels, didn't they, as well? And somebody actually did survive going over in a what can only assume was a bourbon barrel. He probably had to drink the bourbon before he actually took it on. Anyway, my mind digresses. Let's get back to the here and now here in the Basque Country. 3 minutes and 25. Are they on a hiding to nothing, Magnus? I suspect they are.
I think it's going to be difficult to stay away on this one. As soon as we're starting to get onto the final few climbs there, then the bunch are going to start a bit like yesterday, really, just chasing for position, and with chase for position into the bottom of the climbs, then they tend to drive up the pace so quick that the breakaway tends to get caught.
You can see the road starting to kick up here, and this is the climb proper, although they've been gaining altitude for quite some time. A lot of work out of the saddle as well for Madrazo. It seems to be his preferred riding style. Then again, he's in good company with the likes of Contador, also preferring to be out of the saddle more often than not, it seems, particularly on climbs. Just looking through our group today, I know it's a long way out, Magnus, but we've talked about Dan Martin, we've talked about Sergio Henao being the kind of character that could go for it today. I'm wondering if we're going to get something of a surprise. Contador stretched his legs yesterday. It was almost like he wanted to test himself for himself rather than test everybody else, but that is the benchmark, I guess. What about Quintana today? He's been looking lively since coming back from what was an extended training period over the winter. Well,
I think we're likely to see a lot of the guys now. Certainly, the guys are starting to get ready for Amstel Gold, Flèche Wallonne, Liège, Bastogne Liège. They're starting to fire on all cylinders now. Although there's obviously not allowed cylinders, as you noted earlier. But regardless of that, I think it's going to be a hard-fought battle today. There's no doubt about that. And I was actually going to be nice. I was going to get you to do the first pick today, and let you have full start list to your disposal.
I'm not actually sure I want it, quite frankly. I'm going to go for Sergio now, because I think he's on. He's got a better chance than he had last year, and last year he was runner-up. So yeah, I'm going for Sergio now from Team Sky. If a little quiet side bet for me was Louis Meintjes today, because I think he's a bit crestfallen since he left Dimension Data, which was empty in Quebec, followed the zeros on the end of the check to Lampre Merida, and I think he's been a bit abandoned. He doesn't look overly chuffed to be where he's landed. I'm sure his bank manager is giving him all the credit, but I think he needs to prove something within the team, a team, of course, which is extraordinarily well funded and has extraordinarily high expectations as well. So I'm afraid that Louis got to do it at some point. I thought today might be the day. When I saw him in the break, I thought, aye, but he was just too close to the main contenders for the title to be allowed to stay out there. 50 kilometres to go. No surprise to see Astana on the front. They're working, of course, for the leader of this race so far, Luis Leon Sanchez, who gained that position after a great finish yesterday. Just looking down at Francis de Jeux, Thibaut Pinot, he's a pretty good time trialist for later on in this race, and so will be a massive threat, but he went very well in the Criterium International recently, and I've noticed that Francis de Jeux are making their way up towards the front.
Yeah, and what you just said now is one of those things that about a year ago I would have looked at you as if you'd gone completely mad. Thibaut Pinot time trialling.
I know. Same with the whole team, isn't it?
Well, yeah. They've done an awful lot of work over the last probably a year and a half to 2 years now on their time trialling ability, both with regards to equipment, but also obviously the effort that goes into it, and have done a massive improvement. And
it shows you, doesn't it? With dedication, you can actually map in those things, can't you, to your skill set?
There's an opportunity for you yet still coming.
All right, I'll give it a go. They were 200 to 1 in the Tirreno Adriatico time trial, team time trial, and finished third, and very, very close at hand to BMC and Orica Green Edge.
Clearly, there's quite a bit of grit and stuff on the road today, and there's been a few riders coming back now to get a bit more oil on their chains to make it run better and change better.
3.5 minutes remaining. Sorry. Between them, I wish there was. It's going to be a quiet day before we finally get to the very end. I suspect that's where all our fireworks are going to come at once, I'm afraid, today. So please bear with us on what is a bit of a roller. You used to get a lot of days such as this, quiet days, I mean, during the Vuelta, the Tour of Spain, simply because they tried to get round most of the country, and it seemed like the transitions were just, well, painful. Poor old David Duffield, bless him, no longer with us, of course, as I'm sure many of you know. Quite often he used to spend 5-6 hours on his own, no co-commentator, doing the Tour of Spain, and hence all the recipes therein.
Yeah, he's quite a good chef, wasn't he?
He was, yeah, he knew his stuff. But transition days, Magnus, they are part of tours, and you've got to get used to them, setting a rhythm and really setting your mind to them.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can call this a transition day, though, because
it's not supposed to be.
What's happening at the back end of this stage. We got quite a lot of racing to be done, and a very, very tough finish indeed. So this is more of a sort of the calm before the storm, really, where the riders are sort of trying to set themselves up and make sure that they look after themselves, and effectively we need the distances to tire these guys out to get the racing that we look for, really. Just a quick look at Michael Woods there. He's a pretty handy quick man on occasion, Michael Woods. He's Canadian, 29 years of age. We've seen quite a bit of him of late. In fact, in Catalonia, he was looking extremely strong, and he went very well in the Tour Down Under, where he finished in 5th place. So it's not all just about Ryder Ejedal when we think about Canada, is it? And Michael Woods is here by rights. You thought he might have an option yesterday, indeed, didn't you? Yeah, I definitely thought so, but it's a question of positioning and getting everything right when you're coming in so quickly, and certainly the way the finish was yesterday.
So what about today's finish? We've got this sort of shark's tooth approach. Many of the climbs actually not counted, including the Alto de Chozaz that we were talking about a little bit earlier on. Right now we're heading for a little bit of a dip. Once we come off this mountain, we'll be dipping down, long descent, and then the approach.
Just getting some information here from some of the team cars, and it seems like the organisers have actually decided to change the course because of oil on the road, and so we will have a different running towards the finish, but the finish will still be in the same place. So,
well, thank heaven they're keeping the finish. So it may well be that they've been over the Alto de Chozaz and didn't like it. This is the one we're taking 3 times. And so we may skip it on the approach, I guess.
Yeah, I think from what I can understand, they've actually changed where like taking the sprints out of the final part of the race. So yeah, I guess we will find out.
Is the Mendicia that we're dealing with right now, and you can see the worst part of it is just ahead of the peak itself, about 10%. In fact, in 400 meters time, our breakaway will be at the top of it and then start the descent, which will be reasonably rapid. So it's clearly got a break within the climb itself. It's only down as 1.5 kilometers. These guys are 3.5 minutes behind our breakaway, so our breakaway will already be on it, if only just. But it is a nasty kick in the pants with that 10%, and it deserves to be categorised, even though it's only 1.5 kilometres in length. It's inordinately short.
It is quite a short one, and this whole categorisation of climbs, it all depends on which part of the world you're racing in, because they're all different. The first category climb in Holland is barely marked out as a speed bump in Spain. So, and I've also done climbs in Spain where I've been climbing for 10 kilometers, and then all of a sudden it says that sign there, Comienza Puerto, which means start of the climb. And you're thinking, well, what have I just been doing then?
Well, that's precisely what we're dealing with today.
Yeah.
You could actually say that the last 3 peaks, including the very nasty one that we're talking about, could all form part of one single climb in any other race, because there's quite a few steps on the approach. We'll guide you through it when we get there. Mendicia is what we're dealing with now, and these guys have just managed to deal with the most difficult part of it. They're just coming to the end of that right now, taking on a bit more water. Clearly didn't cherish what was inside that particular bottle. It looked like it fell full. They're running towards the clouds though, and good on the organisers to have recognised the danger of oil on the road. It must be a significant amount. Diesel spill, presumably, I'm guessing, but nonetheless, they've got rider safety at the forefront of their minds, and that's what we like.
Well, definitely so. Falling on oil and slippery road surfaces like that is never all that much fun, because you just don't know that you're going down until you've hit the deck, and that tends to be when you hurt yourself the most.
Quite a few of you are saying in scary tales of diving off waterfalls. My mate Gary White says Annie Taylor and her cat went over in a barrel at Niagara Falls in 1901, and both Miss Taylor and the cat survived the stunt. Well, thank heaven for that. She probably took the cat for company, I guess. So there you are. The reason we're talking waterfalls is we've passed some pretty spectacular ones here. There's a lot of water about, Magnus. It's a very green and pleasant land. Some people saying it's near like the Welsh borders, and so you must feel at home.
Yeah, not far off. I mean, it is a very green place. They do tend to get quite a bit of rain as well. So, but beautiful hillsides and a lovely place to ride a bike, and certainly when you're getting some dry days. We've got attacks coming.
We have Movistar and Katusha engaged with it. Can't tell you who it is just yet, but looks lively.
Certainly looks like they're having a bit of a go. Whether that was Movistar or not, I shall have to tell you shortly.
Well, believe it was, and they're going to have to try something, because Nero Quintana is a little bit short-handed. I don't think it's him, but wouldn't be surprised if that's the way it turns out to be. Of those from Team Katusha, Who do you think may well be minded to have a go today? I don't think Joaquin Rodriguez from this sort of distance, he'll keep his powder dry presumably, but you never know. Let's catch up and see who it is with 45.2 kilometres to go, and only one's managed to stick at it, I'm afraid. I don't think it is Movistar. Let's have a look.
No, it's not, is it?
Is it Cairo Royale that have decided to try and... It's difficult to tell with the wet weather gear. It's supposed to match your team jersey, by the way, but most of them seem to have black accented wet weather gear, which is a bit unfortunate. On the chase down was Katusha, not quite sure how much of a threat they thought it was, and here we are. Well, it's I think it's Lastra. It is. Oh, thank goodness for that. There it is, confirmed on your screen. Yeah, Lastra's gone for this from Cairo Royale. He's been busy of late, hasn't he?
Well, he was certainly busy yesterday on the climbs and trying to pick up as many points as he could all day long, and decided to try and finish off and get the last few points on these climbs as well.
He has the King of the Mountains jersey underneath that rain jacket, as you can see, and he's picked up a few points and weaves all over the road, and I think he wants a bit of company, and it's actually not Katusha, it's in fact Cofidis that are coming up to join in here. Wouldn't be surprised to find this was Arnold Giannisson, but we'll wait and see if we get a closer look in a few moments' time. It was a tough drive for the line there, almost coming to a standstill as soon as he got across it.
Yeah, it could also been Nicolas Eder, because between Lastra and Eder this morning, it was only 1 point difference. Lastra on 17 and Nicolas Eder on 16 points.
Would make more sense, especially as they were gunning for those mountains points, as you were saying, Magnus.
Yeah, and they clearly had a bit of an interesting conversation yesterday about the points and everything.
Yes, there we are. Has a look over his shoulder. I think you must surely be right. After the arguments of yesterday, he clearly fancied a few more. In fact, he was hanging back just to say, "Gotcha," on the climb. So we're going to be descending fairly soon. It's a long descent as well, so the race ticker will tick down rather quickly. We do, though, have a collection of climbs. Now, it remains to be seen if we go over the Alto de Chozaz. This is a climb that's not categorised, and it may well be that it's been stripped out. I haven't got the new...
climb.
I don't have the new maps, so I can't tell you whether we're going to take it or not. We'll just have to read the terrain as it's presented to us. Thank you very much for your thoughts, by Tim Barthorpe has posted a picture of the lady and her cat that went... It seems a very small cat as well, and a very big barrel to accommodate the lady's bustle. Clearly that was part of the shock absorption system that she'd built into the feet, but yeah, she managed it. In fact, I'm going to retweet it because I've got a spare moment, and you can have a look at her. We'll be back with more drama of the proper kind in a moment. We're on our descent, and a little chit-chat going on, and indeed Magnus was right. It was our leaders in the King of the Mountains competition who were just having a brief chat to each other. They had a brief chat or two yesterday, and it looked a bit spiteful. Here's your descent, Magnus. We saw great descending yesterday from Luis Leon Sanchez. I think Aston are clearly capable in that department and would like to re-engage the fun. Oh, and they're still having an argument. This has been going on all race. Come on, and we make it up here. Why aren't we working? He said, I only want the mountains points. If you want to work, you work. I'll just sit in here. This is an argument that's been raging all day yesterday, and it's going on, honestly.
It certainly is.
Bless them. Just tell everybody else, eh? You know, you do an effort, you get up there, you deliver. And it's Lastra, by the way, the leader of the King of the Mountains competition. He's nearest to us. And the man who bridges over to you is Nico Ede, who really, I don't know, he was not in a happy place yesterday. He's not in a happy place today, Magnus, and the argument has been raging on yet again. Ede means headache, obviously, and the man who's suffering... It's Jonathan Lastra. He's not been tempted to help out, though, has he? He said, basically, Ede wanted to push on, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, and I don't quite understand why. With 3.5 minutes up to the front group, it's clearly a big, tall order to get there. And I think Lastra just did the right thing. You know, he nipped out there, got the points, and then just ready to back into the bunch again. So that's certainly the smarter way of doing this, as far as I'm concerned anyway. I'm
not quite sure how they're going to sort it out, but they need to start thinking about it. It's great entertainment for us, to be honest. But Nico Ede has clearly got a very, very short fuse, which he's having difficulty lighting today in the damp conditions, as somebody's pointed out. Hello, Movistar, just getting slightly animated as well. We're going to get more of this, Magnus, because with the terrain pitching as it does, despite the fact it's not categorised, we have still got to deal with 1, 2, 3 climbs before we actually get to our climb that is classified to finish the day off. It'll finish many off, but it draws out responses as the sun comes out.
Yeah, it definitely will do. I think the final approach to the last climb is going to be an interesting one, because obviously with it being a relatively short climb, so there's only 2.7 kilometers in length, you're going to have to get into the front to the bottom of that climb very much in the top 5-10 riders. Otherwise you're going to have to waste too much energy to try and get back on terms with the leaders there, and certainly the guys that are going for the stage win. So I think give it another 10k or so, 15 maybe, and we'll start having guys starting to look around, shuffle for position, and that's just going to drive the pace up.
38.6 k's remaining. Merida ski chalets. Do you see what they did there? They managed to get a plug in. There are other ski chalets available. Magnus, can you tell us how you climbed so well as a big guy? One big guy to another, says Mr. Merida.
Well, there is no real way of climbing well as a big guy.
That's the short answer. But
that's
what's
the short
long answer?
The longer answer is. Do you want?
It's the one we're looking for.
It's the one you're looking for. Okay. Yeah, there still isn't really a good answer to that question. It's just a lot of hard work, and basically you work on strength rather than trying to get yourself down to the light as possible. I tried to get super light for a while, and certainly if you're talking for myself anyway, get myself under 90 kilos, and it just didn't work. I just lost all the power, lost all the strength on the flat and everything else, and with that I may have gone slightly quicker up the hills, but not enough to really make a difference. So I focused on being stronger and stronger and stronger, and just worked on the power, and all of a sudden I started climbing okay with that, but it also meant that I went faster on all the other bits where I was supposed to be really good, and effectively do my job really for the team. So I guess the right answer is just focus on getting stronger and do all the riding that you need to do. Obviously make sure that you don't carrying any extra weight, because that's going to penalise you as well. Was that long enough? Yeah,
it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me a really strange question, and I do like the odd strange question myself. And the strange question was, if today was a post-war novel, what post-war novel would it be and why? Asking for the fans, says Various Jams. You've always got time on your hands. Post-war. Well, what about... Would it be interwar? I guess it would. For me, Les Grandes Meunes. Ever heard of that?
No.
Oh, it was an Alan Fournier novel. Poor old Alan. He wrote his novel, and then he died in the trenches, so he only wrote one. Bless him. And I guess today, why do I pick that as a post-war novel to represent today? Because you've got one chance, and it's on the final climb at the very end of the day. How's about that? I had to work hard for that.
I'm just lost for words.
You don't want to name a novel, do you?
No.
Anyway, that the Meun, the Grand Meun. It's a nice book, actually. Yeah, he was a giant of a man who, I guess Baggy probably put me in mind of it. Yes, there we are. So our breakaway. Still up the road. Meanwhile, our Kings of the Mountain have decided that they've done their job for the day, and you saw a little leg stretch going on from Lastra, and Ede is no longer with him, and he's kind of looking at everyone like, "You going to tell me off? You going to tell me off?" No, just only Nico Ede, I'm afraid, is minded. What's wrong with Nico Ede? I don't think Lastra's done anything wrong over the last couple of days.
No, he's not in my book either. I think he's done exactly what he set out to do, and done a good job at that as well. I just had Stephen Matthews actually ask me, so would you call Wiggins a big guy who can climb well? Well,
there we are.
I think he's a tall guy, but I mean, at a point when you can hide behind the lamppost, I don't know if you're actually allowed to be called a big guy.
All right, let's do the big guy conversation. Tom Dumoulin in the Vuelta last year, everyone said, Tom Dumoulin, he's too big to climb the Vuelta.
He's not exactly big though, is he?
Well, that's the point. I think he's actually, if you actually look at how tall he is and what he weighs, I mean, even his profile, it's pretty much similar to Chris Froome. I think that's the case. So yeah, I think the reading of people is go on, read them out.
Well, Tom Dumoulin,
the reading of people
according to some websites and things here, we got there's obviously a lot of them available.
Carry on.
He weighs in at 69 kilos. I don't think.
How tall is he?
He is 185 tall. I don't think he's quite 69 kilos. Though. Certainly wasn't at the Vuelta last year.
Now Chris Froome.
So Chris Froome weighs in at 69 kilos according to this one. I don't think that Chris Froome weighs in quite at 69 kilos either when he's at his lightest. But
nonetheless, I'm just trying to make the point that people who think some people are pretty big climbers and are not going to, like everyone said this of Tom Dumoulin, I didn't agree, famously last year, and was proven correct. He's the same shape as Chris Froome, kind of, at least in some numbers. So yeah, pick your climbers with care, because some guys generally kind of just, you think of them as bigger than they actually are when they're actually not. Although you are, of course, massive. As simple as that.
Yeah, thanks, God.
Moving on. Here's Quintana. Now, why has he got his jacket billowing away? Because
it's hot, yeah.
Yes, exactly. But many of you talking about wattage wasted by unzipped rain jackets. It is a factor, I guess, microscopic, but he'd just rather be cool and not have the hassle of taking the damn thing off again.
Well, you know, when you're sitting in a bunch and you're in the wheels, then it's not quite as bad. But yes, if you do sit certainly in a breakaway like this on the front, you're pushing the wind all the time, then we're talking very big numbers that you end up losing or having to push more to go at the same speed again. So it would make sense not to ride around like Nigel was there. But you know, at certain points you're looking at the weather forecast around you, looking at what's going on. Is it worth really taking this raincoat off just yet, or are we gonna, you know, have another battle point where we're getting soaked again? And because of the raincoats, how they've changed over the last couple of years now, they're all super tight, with a material that's actually quite flexible. It means that they sit snug on you, which means you can race in them, because in the past it was virtually impossible to put a raincoat on and actually still be in the bike race. It was like putting a parachute behind you and trying to cycle with that.
There's some great pictures of them billowing, isn't there? Yeah. Anyway, carry on.
So nowadays, though, you got these snug-fitting raincoats which you can race around in all day long, and everything is hunky-dory, and until you get to the point where you've got to take it off, at which point it becomes twice as difficult to do so, and that might be why someone like Quintana has decided, no, I'm just going to hold that on a bit longer until I know that I'm definitely going to have to take it off.
Belkov doing a little bit of pacing here for Team Katusha, and indeed the speed of the day has risen. We could be in for a long one. Tim Charles says, how about The Longest Day by Cornelius Ryan, 1959? Didn't he say interwar? Was that the question? Which is why I struggled. Scott Daly says Les Grands Munes was published in 1913. Oh yeah, but I was talking about the third impression, which came out in 1919. Anyway, yeah. So all right, I'm back in my box. Peter Wood says the Lastra of the Mohicans. I see what you're doing there, Peter. I like your thought processes. Almost as shocking as mine. So Quintana has now handed over his rain jacket, so he's ready for action. And why not today? He's been extraordinarily sprightly since coming out of what has been a reasonably long winter. The crate arrived from Colombia, out he got, and he's been racing very, very strongly. Yeah, so let's see what he does today. He certainly looked a bit fresher than Contador on the approach to this race, although Contador yesterday was rather exciting. It's going to be fascinating to see whether the big names go for it on. Pace is up, 31.3 kilometres remaining of today. It's been a longish day, 174 k's. Tomorrow it's 193.5. So just 6.5 shy of the 200. That's going to hurt. More of a rolling day that might draw out a brake response. We got one today. Louis Meintjes Fertilli of Lampre were with Madrazo and De Neffel. They went up the road. It's been a difficult day to be out there for such a long time, but two remain after the Lampre pairing went backwards. They were too close to the general classification to really be allowed to be part of the breakaway, and so have decided maybe to fight again. Meanwhile, our break is battling on, as you can see. Well, we've got a tumble on a roundabout. The course today has been changed due to oil on the road surface, and I'm afraid that I don't know whether it is that or indeed just a touch of wheels that have resulted in one of the Trek boys hitting the deck. Just trying to get him up, not quite sure who it is just for the time being. Doesn't look too badly hurt, but in effect that both arms are still working, but nonetheless we always fear for collarbones. There we are. And was just on water carrying duties, trying to get them relayed up to his team, but unfortunately took a tumble, heavily laden as well, and that will have hurt in its own way.
Looks a bit like Kiel Reiner, to be honest.
Well, we'll see if Kiel gets himself back and underway, if it is indeed him. Meanwhile, up the road, this pairing, surely their card is marked, and they must know it, Magnus. They've done a good job today nonetheless. Busy assembling points. No Category 1 climb today, and if you're wondering why an average of 11.67% of our final climb to the line today is not categorized as 1 or indeed especial, I'll just wipe the screen. It's because it's so short, only 2.7 kilometres, but there's a lot of climbing to be done on the approach to it, Magnus. It seems unfair.
Well, I don't know if it's unfair. I think these guys, the majority of them actually do quite enjoy the climbing, but with that, it's a difficult finish. It's a very, very difficult finish, and certainly with it being so steep for a reasonably long period of time as well. We're going to say that the middle kilometre of this is at 13.5%. So it starts out 11.5, 13.5, and then flattens out to just over 9% in the on the final 700 metres. So it's going to be a difficult running for the next 30 odd kilometres, with it never really, I mean, the whole of the Basque country is never really flat. It just keeps on going up and down.
It's never really alpine either, is it,
no,
Magnus, with those long runs? And we were alluding to the fact it's like where you hail from these days, the Welsh borders, that you're solidly in Wales, aren't you? Whereabouts are you?
Well, I'm just outside of Cardiff.
There we are. That can't get more solidly in Wales than the capital. There we are, out towards the hillsides there. So yeah, 3 minutes and 11 is the breakaway just for now. Honestly, even if there was only 2 kilometres to go and they had that, I still think the breakaway would be doomed because of what they have to face. Let's just talk about it. 13.5% maximum, and it's going to be a proper chat, isn't it, by the time that they get there, at least on the approach. How much momentum will they want to carry into the climb, Magnus? It's short, sharp. Well, it's short and very, very sharp. I know it says the average of, it has a section which averages 13.5% within the climb, but believe me, it's going to pitch to about 20 in places. I'm actually looking at a particularly nasty knoll within the very end that comes at about 1,500 metres from the line. That's rude.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, that is actually the very steepest section. Comes, like you said, just from about 1,500 meters up to almost a kilometer to go to the line, and that's at 19%. So it's a serious climb, this one, and I guess the run into is going to be absolutely key to make sure that everyone is where they want to be and where they need to be, and the pace is definitely going to get driven up quite high here now.
Some of you will just put this to bed now. Big guys. Rob McClellan says, "What about Ryder Agenal?" Yeah, big and beanie. I think it's fair to say.
Tall.
Yes, tall as a beanpole. But yes, big man in Durain, of course, says Con Kerwin. Biggest man in the peloton when you were around?
Me.
Exactly. What weight?
96 kilos.
What weight now?
Well, about 102.
Not bad. And we were asking who is the biggest man in the peloton at the moment. We actually don't know. That's something we're going to have to.
Well, I think this whole
look up.
Big is
there's big and there's beefy, isn't there?
It's a concept, because there's a lot of tall riders in there.
Yep.
But there's very few riders that are sort of going over 82 kilos at any point. Even the big man in Durain was climbing at 82 kilos.
There we are.
I don't know.
Maybe it's the Talking Shadows cast.
I think I think we need to find a definition of the big guy, or change the wording slightly to understand what it actually means.
There we are. 27.6 kilometres to go. We're all back in our box on the big guy stuff. 2 minutes and 50 is the gap, and it is Katusha that are working. And who they're working for? Joaquin Rodriguez, Perito. I guess if you've not been feeling well, and he really had a poor Catalonia because of sickness in the Algarve, you may remember, he's defending champion, and it's a strange one. If you're not feeling well, you might want to get your challenge out the way early. If you can just bag a stage, and normally he would have been absolutely underscored for this stage. Like Joaquin Rodriguez, no problem. He's not been well. He is the defending champion, however, and his team are showing their mettle already out front. They want to take this on and give Perito a chance.
Yeah, well, I think certainly with Catalonia last, about 2 weeks ago now, isn't it? I keep on forgetting where we are in terms of but I think he certainly will have found a certain amount of form there, and is certainly on the way towards a good condition now with the latter part of the Spring Classics coming up, and I would be surprised if he's not there or thereabouts today.
There we are. There's been a couple of bumps, as you can see, and a lot of riders trying to get back onto the main body of the peloton. We saw who we believe was Kyle Reinen on the deck. Still haven't got confirmation as to who that was on the floor, but nonetheless, it seems a bit of a reassemblage, but it hasn't diminished the pace at all. They're not waiting for anybody, and it's good to see them all in colour order, because they want to take this on as a battle group, don't they?
Well, they certainly do. It's I think was just watching the first part of this sort of setup now for the finish. We've got a couple of the climbs coming up, and although they're not massive, it's still gonna hurt them. And certainly with they need to bring it 2 minutes and 48 seconds back on these two strong riders out front. Should be doable, certainly with 26 kilometers to go, but nevertheless, it's a pretty decent pace that's going to have to be set here now to start making any inroads on those two riders out front. Because we've got to remember, Madrazo certainly not a bad climber, although maybe not one of the biggest the best climbers in the world. He's certainly good at this kind of terrain where he just goes up and down all day. And Denifel, he's a man that can ride as well. There's no doubt about that.
Just hearing that we've had a few more abandonments. I'm not sure whether there was more involved in that fall than we actually saw. Morera has gone. Paulinho, I beg your pardon. Sergio Paulinho for Tinkoff is out. Don't know what the issue was. Meanwhile, back at the team car, as you can see, just handing in. That's Petrov just handling other people's gear as well as his own. And you often get not only water carrying, but jersey delivering. There's, of course, Alberto will be working very, very hard today. He's done a lot of work of late. Didn't look overly sprightly, but he tested himself out yesterday. prior races, but he tested himself out yesterday, and he looked pretty good indeed. Just homing in on Igor Anton of Dimension Data for you right now. I'm just wondering, you know, they've got an insurance policy which they're going for, and that is Simon Spilak, Katusha I'm talking. Now, he's a pretty handy time trialist, and he likes a technical run as well, of which we're going to have here. I wonder whether this is Katusha not only working for Rodriguez maybe, but also for Simon Spilak for the longer game, whether he's going to be their real choice for this race.
Yeah, and we shouldn't forget as well, they got Jürgen van den Broek in here as well, so they got three solid cards to play on this whole stage race really. Alberto Contador is now down to his race jersey and shorts, so he's clearly thinking of the final here now with only 25 kilometers to go. It's you know, time to go racing.
One man who won't be racing at the end is Louis Meintjes. He's abandoned the race. I think he may have taken a tumble. Because he was part of the breakaway. He looked very sprightly along with Simone Petilli, and I believe he took a tumble off one of the descents that we had coming off the big escarpment, which happened after 100 kilometers of racing. It was technical, greasy surface as well. In fact, some of the surface, we're on several little loops today. 3 times we go over the Chorizas, but going in, how can I put it, in a sort of a clover leaf shape around it, so we keep coming back to the same Chorizas, which is why the organisers saw the oil and thought we'll take a little diversion. I wonder whether that accounted for poor little Louis.
Well, we don't know, do we?
It rhymes. 24.7 kilometres remaining, and the weather's looking as grisly as the rest of the day has been. There we are. Well, staying cheery, which is nice to see, Igor Anton of Dimension Data. And in fact, it doesn't look like it's been that much of an effort so far today. That's all about to change. It's been a reasonably long one. You can hear the roar of the helicopter. By the way, when we're on board, plenty of people say the helicopter seems very loud today. It's Sammy Sanchez of BMC just coming through, by the way. And a few others as well. Petrov and Totato. Steve Cummings, now he's a brute. Is it too much for him at the end of today?
I wonder if it is a bit too much for him.
Yeah,
it's such a specialist type of thing to do this. You know, the short, very steep climbs.
Dear.
I think we've forgotten to mention Dan Martin in today's proceedings, though. Is certainly a man who would be capable of that.
Well, we've mentioned him at the top of the show, and why not dwell on him a little bit longer? They've certainly kept themselves quiet, Etixx Quickstep. They haven't done much of the chasing today. That's an ideal situation, because of late, Etixx have been getting their strategy a bit wrong, haven't they?
Yeah, they kind of ended up looking like they're in control of it, and then all of a sudden losing control of the bunch, losing control of the breakaways, and ending up on the back foot a bit. Certainly up in the classics, that seems to have happened. But I think they're doing right in just waiting for this one. There's certainly other riders who are very much keen to and potentially have got a bigger name on the start list than Dan Martin, although not taking anything away from Dan.
Not at all. Just coming off the Chozas climb on this long sinuous run down to the 20k out marker. It was Kai Reinen. You'll be pleased to know, well, he won't be pleased that he's been on the deck, but it was him. He has remounted and got back into it. Average speed, by the way, for the 4th hour of the race, been a big day today. 36.1 kilometers per hour. It's courtesy of the terrain that we've been dealing with, and also the rain. This is a dry section of road, despite a few little rain spots, as you can see. There are some puddles at the side, which tells you there's been plenty of rain throughout perhaps the evening that we've witnessed. And further down the road, a shower has actually wandered through. So April showers, yes, but right now look at the approach speed, and they've had enough. They've knocked off a couple of minutes in very short order, and our breakaway, I'm afraid, are doomed with 22 kilometers to go. Pace is at its highest, and this is a big shakeout now, Magnus.
Well, it definitely is. 22 kilometers to go, though. You know, the riders in the bunch are now starting to think about the final. They're starting to put the pressure on and see if they can whittle down the bunch a bit already before we get to the bottom of the finishing climb. Just there's less riders then to worry about and to sort of mess anything up. So.
Nemain says there's no K in main keys. Yes, there is. If it's pronounced correctly, according to Louis. He says, just for your information, he's young and you might as well learn how to pronounce his name for future references. Nemain, if that's how to pronounce your name, you're wrong. Main keys with a K. That's how he likes it. 21.5 kilometres to go, a minute and 50. And it is our destination that's looming large in absolutely everybody's minds, and particularly Katusha. And not to be outdone at all, Orica Green Edge with Adam Yates and Simon Yates. What about a Simon Yates kind of day? He's explosive, he can do this kind of stuff. Why not?
Oh, why not? Definitely. I think he's one of the men who certainly will be watching very much near the front. I mean, it's a very strong lineup of these kind of climbers who specifically do this short, sharp, very steep stuff that we got in this race. I don't know, Rodriguez. We've got the Yates brothers. Yeah, pretty much half of the bunch.
Yeah, there you go. Why not? There are plenty of others.
It was easier not to mention anyone.
It almost is, but there's lots of explosive characters that can go for it. I would love to see Joaquim Rodriguez go well, but I don't think it's his day. I'd love him to prove me wrong, though. Just over 20 kilometres to go, a minute and 42. Last chance, last temptation for a drink. They're not interested. They've only got a minute and 40. This is tumbling, Magnus, and it's all over for them, I'm afraid, as this is a determined chase down.
Well, definitely, and I think if Rodriguez is putting his boys on the front here, there's either he's feeling very good indeed, or Spilak is going well. There's I think quite a few in that team that are capable of doing well. We've got Cillian as well as yeah, we'll see.
We will. Minute and 39. Sky also coming and joining the party. This clearly is for Sergio Henao. I think he was my pick today. Mind you, I've mentioned quite a few. I've lost who I have selected. But yeah, Henao for me is going to be in a very, very strong contender.
Well, no doubt about that one. And we're coming up to a bit of an intermediate sprint, I believe, because all of a sudden we got... is that a day?
It is Nico Ede. He wears the Metas Volontes, the intermediate sprints jersey, of which we have 3 each day. Where's Lastras in the King of the Mountains? Nonetheless, Nico Ede. Yeah, there we are. Yeah, Lastras has gone backwards. They normally ride together, it seems, stuck together in this race, and it's been an uncomfortable relationship between the pair of them. But yes, Ede out front, now adding a couple of points for the intermediate sprints jersey, which is the blue jersey, which we're finally getting a look at. Now he's taken off his rain jacket. 1 minute and 30, just 90 seconds, bouncing around all over the place. A bit of a descent, which gave the breakaway new hope. But now it is our climb. The one that has been looming so large for much of the day. We've still got 2 climbs to take before we actually even get there, Magnus, but 2 that are bonus climbs, not categorised, however.
Yeah, and there's no bonuses on there either, unfortunately. Otherwise, it'll be worth going up then quite quickly. But regardless of that, it's we're continuing on this relatively narrow, very much up and downy type of course where it's so difficult to find a rhythm. You keep on working hard and you just feel like you're never getting the pace going, and it's just really, really hard work. But the 2 men out front are certainly doing a good job at it. They're doing a fantastic job. Free rolling at the moment, as you can see, but and not a bad surface to take on today as well. High crown in the road, so it's sheeted of any water that may well have been dropped, of which there has been plenty. These guys have got a comfortable approach, I think, however, but it's not going to get very comfortable when they start climbing. No, definitely not. And with the pace set as high as it is, both from Katusha and Orica Greenedge, I think there's going to be quite a few riders in the bunch here feeling this one a bit later on.
I think you're absolutely right. And look at this. Just diving up the inside, didn't quite see who it was for Orica Greenedge that got himself into that cheeky little position. Michael Albertini and Simon Gerrans were extraordinarily busy yesterday. Chris Juul-Jensen part of the push. Christian Meyer, Ruben Plaza, I think it was, that took that curve with Amit Taruka. But it's Adam Yates and Simon Yates, the brothers. Of the pair of them, I presume you're going to be going for Simon today, but don't be surprised if Adam at least features late.
Well, whether he features late, he might even set it up for his brother. Who knows how they're playing, what they're thinking today with Orica Greenedge, and it's obviously a question of what the run into the final climb looks like as well. So, obviously, I personally would leave someone like Albertini and Simon Gerrans to very late in the day to do the sort of the final approach into the bottom of the climb, because they have that top end speed and raw strength to ride at that pace for a longer period of time. So it would be a safety bet to put those guys to do that job.
Yes, indeed. Just looking at how they're pushing into this one, there is Rodriguez Perito with the number 1 on his back as they come into Sunshine, and he's got 4 of his team, in fact many of his team, hovering around him, but it's not necessarily going to be his day if he's not feeling up to it. Igor Anton is just rolling into our consciousness right now, and I think it looks like Steve Cummings that's actually doing a bit of the approach work on his behalf. They can swap duties, of course, late on, but I think it's too much of a test, this last climb. We've not been here before. Nobody knows it, Magnus. I am sure that some of them will have had a little recce once they saw how much of a test it is. And it's been described as a decisive day, this, where we may well not find our eventual champion, but certainly we could have a few that we can draw a line through in terms of being contenders for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's difficult to get out there and recce. All these different climbs and different stages, and you tend to only go and really recce them for the major stage races, unless you live in this particular area. And obviously, there's quite a few bike riders that tend to be around here. So the word kind of spreads in the peloton, and it might be that some sport director's driven past it and on his way to another race and actually recce'd the climb for the riders.
Yeah. Exactly. Decent idea. Looking now at Movistar, they may well be short-handed. No Izaguirre, either Jon or Gorka, we remind you, due to illness right at the very last after the start list had been named, and so unfortunately for them, they got themselves struck off and no replacements. I think that was Tony Gallopin trying to get back in for Lotto Soudal, by the way. Meanwhile, our breakaway's up the road by 1:10. So Quintana is going to have to work pretty much on his own at the end, although he's got Winner Anacona to help out. The approach work by Herrada, Sutherland, Moreno and Visconti, but Nairo Quintana, we sort of said, would he be doing this? He's actually won here in the past. I think it was 13 he was the title holder, and so he can take it on with all the complexities therein, and despite the fact that it's early on in the season, and he does generally like to get a tidy win under his belt early on, and he certainly looks up for it. Has done the last couple of weeks, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely. He's certainly going well enough. Although he's on his second race of the year now, so I think there's still a bit of speed to come out of him, but nevertheless he's going to have a go at this one. And he's still got a strong team, although he's lost 2 teammates straight away before we even started this race, but the guys that he's got around him are certainly no slouches.
Well, Winner Anacona can go well, as you know, and I think he'll be last man standing, although traditionally Nairo Quintana seems to operate very well on his own. I think that's possibly because we were used to seeing him at the top of so many mountains where frankly there's very few people who could stay with him apart from the absolute elite like Contador, like the Froomes of this world. This will be a good early season marker, bragging rights, and start playing a psychological game with your opponents. With just 15.5 kilometres to go, the real crucible of the day awaits at the very last. And we'll have some answers, won't we, Magnus?
I certainly hope we'll have some answers coming from there. like we said, it's a hard climb to do, and you know, it's a completely different type of effort to the alpine climbs. But usually we still see the sort of the GC contenders, the big mountain climbers. They tend to battle it out regardless of the steepness and the length of the climb. And like you said about Quintana being on his own, by the time they're on the climb, it's not really going to make too much of a difference anyway.
I thought I saw Quintana making a move all on his lonesome just a few moments ago. We'll see. Just looking at Anacona, he's struggling back here, due to the flaring of some of the light. I think Quintana's actually making a move to try and latch onto Team Sky and maybe just get back to some of his teammates who are up here. There he is, Quintana, P3 on the back on a line of Movistar riders. Meanwhile, taking a turn back in towards the clouds. As you can see, a little bit of blue sky up ahead as well. Just about all weather conditions today, including some snow on some of the higher peaks, incidentally. Our little travelogue goes on, as you can see. I've lost my notes on that particular square building, but nonetheless, 48 seconds is our gap right now. And well, if you want to be in business, you're going to have to be towards the front, and some teams are trying to battle for position on a road that's not that wide. You've got Sky on the right, then Movistar next to them, moving to the centre of the road, Katusha, and then on the left-hand side of the road we have Orica Green Edge. Here's the turn that our two breakaway riders took a few moments ago, and it's a big sweep for everybody else onto a wider piece of highway, so a chance to move up and make amends if you've been out of position for a little while. Garrastatxu we're heading to. We've never been there before, Magnus, we've mentioned that, so it's new terrain for everybody.
It certainly is, but a lot of the guys will have, well, some of the guys certainly will have been out here training. They will have actually using some of the technology today, and you know, computer technology. You can sort of go and have a look at the climb virtually.
Just how useful is Google Earth and the like?
Well, they are quite useful actually, and I certainly find it more for looking at the sprints and the final kilometre or so of a stage. You can walk through it.
Simon and Rees has written in, says that Katusha Cycling recce'd the climb this morning and posted a video. Well, there you go. I missed that one, but no surprise. And it'll be no surprise as well if Joaquim Rodriguez kicks on. They've got Jürgen van der Broek and Simon Spilak in particular for the long game. That's in gunning for the title. But Rodriguez may be back. He may have recovered since his sickness in the Algarve. He's always smiley, so it's hard to measure really when he's feeling ill.
Yeah, I think you're right there. But in my eyes, I think someone like Rodriguez will not put his team to do all the work for him unless he's feeling up for it. Yes, they have a backup man in Spilak, but I think Rodriguez is keen to have a go at this on his own at some point soon.
Well, it'd be great if he is. Quintana's ready just in case he does go for it, and likewise he'll be trying to mark out Sergio Henao, who I think is a great choice for today. And here we are, the camera just hooks down, and everyone is mustered for action. 13.2 kilometres to go. Still a long way before we actually get... It's the last 3Ks essentially which we have to worry about, and this is the race for the foot of it.
It certainly is. 13 kilometres to go, so we've got 10 kilometres of really testy type of riding where it's all about positioning and not once you find that position, not losing the position again. And it's certainly not an easy one to do.
No, it's not an easy one to take on at all. Chase is nearly over, 31 seconds the gap. No combativity award, not even a chorizo, I'm afraid, in this race, which
really?
Seems a bit hard. Yeah, there we are. I haven't seen one listed at all, so there we are. I'm not sure what the prize would be. Well, I know what I'd like it to be. 12.6 kilometres of today remaining, and a great chance for the explosive riders. So if you missed it earlier on, we're talking about riders such as Rodriguez, such as Henao for Sky, Rodriguez of course for Team Katusha, Simon Yates we've been conjuring with. They're clearly up for it because Orica Green Edge are in position. Why not Quintana? He's not known for his these kind of short, sharp explosions, but Dan Martin is for Ethics Quickstep. and they've been very anonymous. Haven't really seen them even move up at this point, so we've seen very little of him. There is Contador, who looked sprightly yesterday, and in fact Ethics Quickstep just showing us some of their manpower here. That was Contreras, Rodrigo, for Ethics, just staying where he needs to be, potentially for support. Others as well to conjure with.
Well, Contador is sitting quite far back in the bunch here at this moment, as well as Ryder Heyshedal. There, quite a few riders there that I thought, they're certainly looking at going up there somewhere. Contador having a bit of an issue with one of his.
Well, he's having a word with Freire, actually, who's being guided by Steve Cummings. I'm not sure whether there's been any kind of issues further down the road, but clearly Cataldo is mooded to express himself cinematically. What on earth are those pens for? Line pens. Is it a sheep race? Maybe it is. Not quite sure how you work that one out. Yes, 11.8, somebody will write. 17 seconds now. It's all over as far as the break are concerned. What are Cannondale up to today?
Well, last time we saw them, they were actually setting themselves out quite nicely and very well grouped in the front. I mean, for who they got. Pierre Rolland is certainly someone who would like to have a go at this one. They got a whole bunch of guys who are capable of being there or thereabouts, but I don't know whether there's anyone who's actually...
And I never know about Pierre Rolland, to be honest. There's more question marks than applause when it comes to Pierre Rolland. I know he's had some great days, but they're flashes of brilliance, and it's usually on much longer climbs than we're going to be dealing with. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe Cardozo, I don't know. Not Cyclar, I wouldn't have thought today, but they're up for it, and there they are, left-hand side of the road. They're just breezing up and alongside Orica Green Edge. Katusha have just eased back a bit now that the chase has been successful. Don't be surprised if Rodriguez has a go today. I think he'll certainly have a go. Whether he'll deliver it is another matter. I've got my doubts. And finally, Orica Ethics Quickstep, I beg your pardon, on the right-hand side of the road do start to move up, along with Lotto, Cofidis, and just about everybody else, including Uncle Tom Cobley. 10.9 kilometres only left of today, and suddenly LottoNL-Jumbo joined the fun.
Yeah, they're coming up there as well on the left-hand side together with Cannondale, and bit of a sort of race for position at the moment here with still 10 kilometers to go. So we've got 7k of this kind of battling for position in the bunch, and battling for control of it as well.
I thought we were at least going to see a slow motion handshake there, but not a bit of it. Now, this late, hand over your rain jackets to the man who's chosen to go backwards, and you can see that's happening right now, and it was Danny Moreno that's just stuffing jackets up his own. 10.4 kilometres to go. You've made your pick, Magnus, but you're going to have to remind me who it was.
I went for Rodriguez.
There we are. Well, I'm going to stick with Henao for Team Sky today. They spread wide, and it's almost a blocking manoeuvre by Cannondale. There's a lot of space to play with out there, and they will use it. And Orica Green Edge spear up the middle, as you can see, alongside Team Sky and indeed Quintana's Movistar men. Contador is back in here, but I don't know, he's not looking up for it. Just watch now. Contador go and win today.
Of course he is.
Yeah, so Quintana's just moving in, moving up towards his teammates, as you can see, and in so doing, guiding others into position as well. That was Tozzato, I think, who's just sailing along with him. So it's finally come down to this, Magnus. It's been almost a difficult day for everybody, where we've been rolling along more or less with an acceptable breakaway, a breakaway acceptable to many of the main contenders. It's Roman Kreuziger, by the way, who's up here, just bouncing away, as you can see. And indeed, it's starting to shatter just a little bit, and it's Sky that want to set the tempo, and they're going to do it with Nordhaug just stretching his legs, adding a little bit of pace, unkind for some. Vasil Kirienka, the great engine room as well, is also there, and they just wrestle themselves into position. Kirienka in a fine spot right now. Don't think it's going to be for him, but Just looking further down at Katusha, and Rodriguez is the protected rider by the looks of things. In fact, it's hard to call, to be honest, the way it's shaping up, and not even whether Rodriguez is on the back of a line of 3 as we speak, and it's starting to grind and hurt already, and this is not even anywhere near our final test.
No, we certainly aren't. I think we're still on one of these final little drags, so we've got another small descent to do before we start getting down to the final climb. But this is pace that has been set by Team Sky is hurting everyone, and even some of their own riders, to be fair.
It's absolutely right. Well, good to see the name Yates up towards the 4 at the moment, and still a great core strength. We've mentioned it several times of Vasil Kirienko. He's a rock, isn't he? He's kind of like a boulder, and everyone else has got to hope he doesn't roll back down the mountain, I guess.
Well, I guess you're right there, but looking at Team Sky here, they're looking very, very strong, and up comes Landa as well now to join the party near the front there. I wonder whether Cannondale are going to set this one up for Slagter, or whether they got someone else in mind. Obviously, with the Classics coming up, he should be starting to get into form.
Both Yates brothers are up towards the front, and as you can see, Contador is just starting to make some moves as well to try and latch on to a Team Sky push that is looking extremely effective at the moment.
Certainly is, and the motorbike man there,
Rui Costa's joining in, can't help himself. There he is. In fact, it's Patilli who was in the early break. That's interesting. Also comes up at the back, Diego Ulizzi for or a little further down, I should say, and moving into position is Sammy Sanchez. There's got to be a worry as well for many. It's really strung out. The pace that Sky have invested here has had a cost, hasn't it?
Yeah, certainly it's putting a lot of pressure on a lot of riders, and they still haven't used up Vasil Kirienka for any of this. It's still Nordhaug, so Kirienka is going to be the key man for the final part of this lead out, effectively, into the bottom of the climb.
The leaders here as well, so don't discount Luis Leon Sanchez, but Miguel Angel Lopez is knocking around. Fabio Aru didn't look happy earlier on, but he's also here. Kirienka is that engages diesel power, apparently. There is the leader's jersey, just on the back of a long line of Cannondale riders, and in fact he's doing the pacing into this, so it's clearly not Luis Leon Sanchez that's going to be teed up. I think it's going to be Lopez, Miguel Angel, that's going to be their chosen son today, only because of the droopy sides of the mouth of Fabio Aru, who's not looked best pleased. Orica Greenedge determined not to get tagged off the back here. We saw both of the Yateses. Who would be your pick out of that pairing, Simon?
I think I'll go for Simon today, yeah. Difficult one though, because they're both very talented on this type of finish.
I haven't got the latest beard update as to which one's wearing one or not, but there we are. 6.5 kilometres to go. Somebody will tell me. Into it, Pierre-Roger Latour of AG Tour Le Mondial. Haven't seen much of him, but it's worth a thought, especially on a day like this, because he is quite sparky when he needs to be. 6.2 to go, and so this will roll into it. It's a flat section. We've just come over that rather pesky climb, the Alto de Chuzas, which wasn't classified. Sky mean to dominate.
Yeah, they certainly do, and now they got probably the best man for the job as well in Vasil Kirienka, who gets on the front here and starts to wind his up. Gonna need a bit of help from his teammates though as well, because we're still looking at another 3 kilometers or so before we hit the bottom of this climb, and everyone is now moving up. They're chasing position. Down the bottom of your right hand side you can see the blue jerseys of Ethics Quickstep, the darker blue, and Katusha still very much up there, and I think Cannondale are looking good in their green as well. Zander
Arme is doing a great lead-in job here for a man we haven't really mentioned, Louis Verwijk. There he is in the middle of that Lotto Soudal train, and the shoulders being engaged here. Verwijk just swapping a bit of perspiration there, I think, with Rui Costa himself, the Portuguese champion, who's just rolled in behind Orica Greenedge as Sky ease up with 5Ks to go. This is dramatic.
Well, I think they just got themselves a bit swamped at one point there now, and still trying to make their way up near the front. So just it's difficult to hold the hold the sort of stronghold of the bunch, and as there's so many riders coming from the back, moving up, and trying to sort of get themselves onto the front at the right time. You can see this is a massive drag race now. Roman Kreuziger working for Contador in the yellow on the right hand side.
Indeed.
You've got Lotto then on the front as well, and it's still very much the Yates brothers in white with blue there, and just next to Contador.
Simon Clark has been oh so busy, just flicking his elbow out at the moment, trying to lead in Lawson Craddock, or at least share duties with him for the Cannondale boys in the lime green. And they come up alongside, and there's Alberto Contador, who's called for a little bit of pace as well. He wants a decent look at the very least of this final climb. 4 kilometres to go. Now it's 2.7 in length, so we're going to be there in about 1500.
Yeah, well, just less than that now. Is exactly a kilometre to go to the bottom of the climb.
It is indeed. There we are. Pace up, and the break has happened. They're starting to push on for this one, and it's Patilli that tried to do it, couldn't do it. Sits back down, as you saw. And Thibaut Pinot for Francis de Jeux. What about Sebastian Reichenbach? Big, strong man. He's part of this driving force for Francis de Jeux today. Haven't really thought about Sebastian Reichenbach. I thought it was too punchy for him. He likes a longer climb, but you never know.
You never know, definitely not. But the road is definitely starting to go uphill here now as well, and everyone's still fighting hard for position into the bottom of this climb. The Team Sky is still very much on the front, choosing the wrong side of the road as far as I'm concerned. They should have just drifted across and shut the door on everyone on that one.
Didn't happen. So here we are, the Garrastatxu. We're on it right now, and well, a big question mark on the approach, or an exclamation mark, I should say, not a question mark. There'll be some questions at the end of this as to who designed it. 200 metres now before the climb starts proper, and the last little bit of respite where the road flattens out, and they're juggling for position, as you can see. It's going to be also important to have a decent position coming into it, and right now it's Orica Greenedge that do the big lead in. Francis de Jeux also engaged, and Dan Martin's in the house. Perfect timing. He gets up towards the 4. Great work by Ethics Quickstep. Good piece of delivery.
Yeah, very good effort indeed, and getting onto this very narrow section of road, and this is where it gets steep.
Contador it is that's up towards the 4, as you can see, just rolling with it for the time being. But who is going to reach out? Perito, don't think so, not today. Just having a look a little bit further down at Simon Spilak also involved for Team Katusha, and they're rolling with it. So who is going to have a go? That's Simon Yates, by the way, in P3, I believe. Can't quite see on the flaring of it. He's got the same sort of body form. It is Simon Yates right now. I can confirm with you. There he is, just behind Alberto Contador, in an absolutely brilliant position. Bilbao for Kaya Rural is also in the house, and Dan Martin's just starting to roll up. There you can see his hunched shoulders, right hand side of your screen, so left hand side of the road. 19%. I told you it was nudging 20 on occasion. They've carried a decent amount of speed into it. It's only a short run in, as you can see, with 2.3 remaining, and some surely are going to be tempted to have a go. And Contador's riding a lot more confidently than we thought perhaps he would.
Well, I certainly thought he was going to be up here and giving this one a go.
Think so, having a little push now on the 20% margin. Latour just engaging it. He had a good Criterium International, and it's not beyond the writ of man that Latour could provide a surprise today. He's being marked, but it's hard to stay with him. A man on form.
Yeah, certainly man on form, going really well here. Team Sky looking like they're covering everything as well, though, and Contador very much up there, just reacting to everything.
Staying with it, likewise is Simon Yates of Orica Greenedge, and still nobody decides to try and go for this sprint. But will it be Contador after we've posed so many questions about him with 2 kilometres to go? It's between Sky and AG2 a la Mondiale for the time being, and Contador's just caught on the corner. Is that a little bit of kidology? Will he suddenly burst for it? We've seen that before. The steepest margins are now.
Well, it's certainly the steepest part of the climb here, and I think that looks like it was Mikel Landa just going for Team Sky and just going a bit too hard.
Here we go then. It's now it's a time to just engage if you possibly can. And Team Lotto, they've got Kelderman, they've got Jessink. Wow. they've got some ambitions as well, which is showing right now with 1.8 to go, and Contador is struggling just a little bit, or at least he doesn't want to go for it just yet. Still Latour remains engaged out front. As you can see, it's a wrestle, and they've got a gap just for now, and Contador is not minded to close it, not yet anyway.
No, he's certainly not going for that one, but very good move, very good strong attack as well. And the problem is when it's so steep, so if you go too early, too hard, and you put yourself on in the red zone, then it's over very quickly indeed.
Yeah, there can be no way back. You see the Portuguese champion is there, Rui Costa as well. Pinot's also in the house here. Didn't see Dan Martin for a little while, I'm afraid, so it looks like perhaps not going to be his kind of day. And coming through here, Dimension Data, Anton said he was up for this at the top of the day. 1,600 meters to go. It's not all over by a long chalk, and in fact the worst part is supposed to be now. Contador actually out of the saddle, sits back down and looks a little bit breathy, but he's in very good company. It's a big ask so early on in the season, this one. And I guess well, there we are, and it is indeed Kelderman that's out front at the moment, setting the pace and doing a great job. Yates just couldn't stay with this. The road very, very narrow, as you can see, and Mikel Landa in a place, well, many said he hadn't actually prepped or wasn't in great form, but he's showing that he is right here and right now, as you said, Magnus.
Yeah, definitely. He's looking like he's in control of this climb. Oh, the Kelderman's going very strong indeed up here. One of the more difficult parts of the climb is this here now, from up until about a kilometer to go, at which point it starts leveling out a bit again.
Well, it eases, but hardly anything, and it's a cruel one. Landa, of course, he's riding at home here. A couple of stages of the Giro last year, and a stage in the Vuelta, we remind you. And that is Latour, who's been on such great form, just going backwards and about to be taken by the chasers. Is that Reichenbach just there for Francis de Gea? If that's him, that bodes well. And look at this. Lots of riders suddenly finding their legs again, but is it all too late, Magnus? They've got a 12-second margin, 13 now, with 1,200 meters remaining. Yeah, and this I think it is a bit too late. The whole bunch is just split to bits and pieces here. Looks like Contador is going backwards in this as well. Yeah, he looked like he was suffering just on that last couple of curves. There's the leader, Luis Leon Sanchez, after yesterday, and you can see Pierre Roland. I think his team did a lot of approach work. That's Contador just struggling a little bit as well as we pan further up this group. And in fact, no, there's Contador. I beg your pardon. In there. Yes, it was Roman Kreuziger a little bit further back down. 1.1 kilometres, 1,100 metres only, and a 15-second gap. I think this may well prove to be decisive. It's uphill all the way to the line, Magnus. Well, it certainly is. It does level out a little bit around the kilometre to go mark as well. Goes down to about 9%, so which is actually going to feel quite nice for these riders after having battled with the 19 and 20% that they've had over the last 500 metres or so. He just rounds his man. He comes round Wilco Kelderman with the sound of the crowd ringing in his ears. I imagine he's going to hear bells a little bit later on. 10 seconds is what this pairing have got, and Wilco Kelderman, he's got quite a punch on him towards the end. If it does flatten out a little bit, and going for it goes Rui Costa, the Portuguese champion, just decides to step out of the saddle. As you can see, 1k to go. It's going to be a good finish for him. Who's going to get close and limit the damage? Alberto Contador, of course. There he is, comes up on to the back wheel. This is about damage limitation because of Mikel Landa, who clearly has arrived on much better form than many of you thought. There were some questions from you on Twitter earlier on today as to how much he'd got to invest. 800 metres is what he's got to deal with right now, and he's also got to deal with Kelderman, who's now in his wheel. But is he starting to struggle? There's a gap opening up between them as Landa tries to just put some space there, and Kelderman's equal to it, comes up and reminds him that he's still there. This battle not over by any means, with just 700 metres to go. 8 seconds is their margin. They may even still get caught. 7 seconds seconds suggested to us here, as we're still on 12%.
Well, so much can happen in the last 600 meters on the climb as steep as this one, and certainly when it has been as steep for as long a time as this has. And now the guys down the back here in the bunch, the favourites, well, we should probably call the two guys up front favourites as well, but it's certainly a bit of movement happening in this bunch here.
Yeah, I think it was Rodriguez that just got to the front of the chase, but as you can see, it does ease here now, as Kelderman got stealing in his mind. Why not? He'll be thinking about the overall as well. He's probably the better choice than guessing, certainly has been today. So Kelderman just stalking his man. It's Mikel Landa. It's going to be a sprint between these two. The gap is now too big, 15, 16 seconds. It's getting more as they start to think about the sprint. Crowd getting involved here, security trying to clear the way. 300 meters remaining. They're still climbing.
They're still climbing, and Landa still working hard. Kelderman, though, is he going to go for this one, for an early one? Timing is going to be everything in this kind of a sprint. Especially
as Kelderman offers up a big windbreak, I guess you might say, for Landa, if he can stay with him if the attack does come. Surely it's going to have to happen between the pair of them. It's a question of when. The road eases. They look at each other. They know that they've got it between them. It's Perito that picks it up. Oh, and there's all hell breaking up, and Sammy Sanchez goes for it as well. Sammy Sanchez are being chased down by Henao. Who else? From Team Sky. It's a big battle between those two. They can't afford to keep looking at each other. Time's running out. They're still not at the hoardings or the markers. And just look what's going on behind. They're not aware of it just yet because of the noise. They're at the hoardings right now. 150 meters and still picking it up and going for it. It's Henao. Henao's chasing down. It's going to be 1 and 3 for Sky, I think. Landa goes for it now. Landa releases himself, and Kelderman can't stay with him. Comes around the outside, does he? We're waiting for them with his camera. He knows he's done it. I think it's going to be Sky 1 and 3, maybe 1 and 2. Look at that. Oh, Landa takes it, lands the victory. Kelderman then, and this will be an hour across the line as we look further down the line. Sammy Sanchez it is that makes it. Alberto Contador will take that, quite frankly, and just sailing over now. Either Pinot or Reichenbach, not quite sure, but the pair of them are certainly engaged in the top of it. What a day we have had. The first real test on the Basque Country, and drama at the finale.
Yeah, what an interesting climb that was, and not at all the kind of outcome that I was expecting. I was expecting to see neither Quintana and Contador play much more of a role in this one than they actually were certainly for a longer period of time of that climb. But wow, what a ride by Mikel Landa, who's back in good form.
Indeed, there is the leader. Will hand over his jersey. He's no longer the leader. Luis Leon Sanchez just coming here with Darwin Atapuma, who probably would have preferred a longer, a more steady, difficult climb, but nonetheless, you can't ask for everything throughout a stage race, and today plenty got bitten. Dan Martin was one of those, I'm afraid. It looked like he'd been delivered to perfection, but just wasn't to be for Dan today. But he's had so many stellar victories so far this season. No surprise that he's going to miss out on a couple at least. Landa, though, did not, and he landed it.
Well, he did, yeah. Well, it was a good timing, and just waited for long enough to open up his sprint, and I don't think Wilco Kelderman had an awful lot to respond with once Landa went. But what a way to get back into racing, eh? Well, Sky set the limit. Landa doing a great job, superb teamwork as well today, and in fact coming home 1 and 3. You couldn't really ask for much more than that, say for 1 and 2, obviously. Landa takes it 1 second clear of Wilco Kelderman. Sergio Luis Henao finishing in 3rd place today ahead of Sammy Sanchez and Alberto Contador. That will be how it looks at the top of the leaderboard today. Plenty of gaps. Yeah, definitely a couple of gaps opening up, although not massive gaps yet, and we got to think that this whole stage race finishes off with a time trial as well, so there's equations that are going to need to be made for that.
56 Tour of the Basque Country. Pinot in 6th place, by the way. Reichenbach 10th. What a boy. He can time trial as well, as we know. So can Pinot. Francis Tijoux really have turned things around. Quintana finishing in 8th place behind Rui Costa, as you can see. Perito managed 11th today. And, well, credit to everybody who finished strongly on what was a really, really testing final climb. as you saw. Here's the final moments of it, Magnus.
Yeah, definitely. Landa just looked strong all the way up the climb. Looked like he was composed and in control of his effort. Went relatively early on with Kelderman, but I got to say that's an impressive comeback into racing for a top class rider.
Great work by Kelderman as well today. Super job. Well, we race on tomorrow. It's the longest stage, by the way. Lazarka, our destination. Category 2 climbs at the end, but then again it was a category 2 climb that finished as today, so don't read too much into that. Long day as well, Magnus, with 193.5. That will be stage 3 and the dead centre of the road racing days before the time trial on stage 6.
Yeah, it's a difficult couple of final stages, and certainly the time trial, which is very technical, I think will change an awful lot in the outcome of this race.
I think you're absolutely right. Narrow roads to glory found today. Well, there are very few more testing climbs until we get to Arate on stage 5, so if you can stick with it as one of those who finds themselves in the top 10. There's been a big shakeout today, and it was nice to see Sebastian Reichenbach, who's a big guy, also dragging himself up that horrible test, and he had to, didn't he? 10th home today, I think he was.
Yeah, no, he was going well up there. I guess you're going to have to define the big guy thing again there now, Carlton. But
yeah, it's been the question of the day. Here we are. Landa takes it ahead of Kelderman, Sergio Henao, Sanchez and Alberto Contador, and it's good to see Bertie as well amongst the pre-race favourites, really stretching his legs. Pinot in 6th place for Francis Jeux ahead Rui Costa, Quintana, that's Nero that is, Robert Gesink and Sebastian Reichenbach rounding out the top 10, just ahead of Rodriguez and Vavijk, all 15 seconds down. That essentially is your GC going into stage 3 tomorrow. Wow. Well, I said there was going to be some big time gaps, but how long ago did we finish? Poor guys. The engine room's coming in, having done a fantastic job. Sabi Zandio, one of those, just reaching the line right now. Well, we started the day with some pictures of this fine